you on 9/11?
When I found out about the towers falling, I was standing in line to get my picture taken because it was picture day and I was in 10th grade.
What'd you think?
I thought that people were lying. I didn't think it was true.
Steph, where were you on 9/11?
I was in 5th grade in Mr. Clifford's class, Charlestown Elementary School, and my mom picked me up from school, and I didn't know why, and they didn't want to tell me until like later on in the day. The next day in school, it's a big deal, but I spent the day with my mom.
Do you remember anything emotional?
My mom didn't want to tell me when she first picked me up, but she was very frantic and emotional just to have me with her, so I knew something weird was going on.
Jules,
Yo.
what do you remember from 9/11?
9/11? I was in preschool, my mom picked me up early, and I was really young. I remember how my mom crying like a lot.
Yeah. Shayla, do you remember anything?
I remember my sister was telling me how all the white kids got picked up when she was still at school watching
Wait, what was it? Say this again?
She's like, all the white kids got picked up when she got home at school still watching it on the news. Like all of the teacher actually left the class and she was there by herself.
Jordan, what do you remember?
I think I was in 5th grade and I was in Catholic school. And they like called everyone in, we met in the church and started doing all these prayers. And then we were sent home. And then I don't know when the time frame was, but my parents and I were like in the basement and we went upstairs for something and there was a plane that flew like super, super low across our house. And it was like super scary, so we like all went to the basement and that's really all I remember. But it was just, I lived close to the New York airport, so like it was scary for sure.
Kylie, where were you on 9/11?
I was at Governor Mifflin High School senior year, and they started showing them on the TVs in class.
What was your gut reaction?
You just kind of sink because you're not sure if that's reality when you see it at first. It was amazing, amazingly awful.
Rachel, tell us about 9/11.
I remember I was sitting in class and my teacher turned on the TV and then we had an early dismissal.
How old were you?
7.
How was your mom's reaction?
She was like freaking out and panicking because my aunt I guess worked near the building.
How did you find out and what did you feel when you found out about 9/11?
Well, on 9/11/01, I was teaching at Holy Name High School in the classroom, and we hear stories that this planes were crashing into buildings. So naturally, the first thing we do as a teacher, we turned on the TVs in our classroom, and we wanted to see and watch what was happening. At that time, our principal, Sister Joseph Eleanor, came around and said, shut the TV off. Her concern was, with so many people in New York with what was happening and not knowing the full extent that it was happening, did we have children in our classes that may be finding out about people in their family in New York on the TV with nobody really to guide them. So we had to turn it off. So that was my initial finding out of what was happening in the United States on 9/11.
How did you feel like, I guess having kids, did you feel like, did you have any connection to people in the towers or anything like that?
No, I personally had no, that I knew of, personal relations with people in the towers. And I know that, if we did, you'd probably have a whole nother mindset of what was going on. Like right now with the hurricane, my daughter lives in Alabama and she's having 60-mile-an-hour winds right now. And I'm really concerned for her because it's somebody that I love that's in the midst of that. Now it's in the lesser parts of it, but I'm sure people that have loved ones that were in the midst of what was happening there had a much stronger feeling than I did that just watching what was happening on TV.
Yeah. Espo, where were you when you found out about 9/11?
So I was a junior in college, Kutztown University. Mondays we would go out a little bit for Monday Night Football, and then Tuesdays we lifted. We didn't have class till the afternoon, so we would go lift about 10:30. Got up Tuesday, not feeling great, and put the TV on, and it was a really sobering type of experience. I'll never forget it. It was in the Cliff House up at Kutztown, and the rest of the day was just, went to class, went to practice. Day I'll never forget.
So you're 6 years in the Army.
I was temporarily stationed in Huntsville, Alabama, going to a non-commissioned officer school while my pregnant wife and daughter were stationed in Watertown, New York.
So what was your reaction?
I didn't know where my family was because I cut the phone lines, and we couldn't react. They wheeled the TV into our classroom, and we watched the second tower go down.
Shit. That's pretty crazy.
I had no idea.
Sam, tell me about your 9/11 experience.
Wow, that took a turn. I was in 2nd grade. I think we were supposed to have an ice cream social that night. And all of a sudden, like, teachers sort of stopped talking and we got sent home at like 9:30 or 10. I really had no idea what was going on. Then my parents came home like freaking out and wouldn't let me watch TV. And I just remember watching TV later that night and not really understanding what was going on because I was so young. And sort of piecing together that like something really awful happened and things were sort of probably not going to be the same for a while, but that probably took me a few years to understand because I was so young.
I was in 6th grade and I didn't really know what was going on. And I was calling my parents.
Emily, what was yours?
I was in 4th grade and everybody was going home and they put us on the jam to watch a movie and my parents didn't come pick me up, so I was
Did you know something crazy was going down?
That's why I got home.
You didn't know, Jess?
No.
So I was at school and we heard the rumor that an airplane flew into the World Trade Center. And I went to my nurse and we talked about like in the 30s how a B-17 flew into the Empire State Building and it was still standing. And we're like, you know, you just couldn't believe what was, no one knew what was going on at that time. And then maybe, whatever, 15, 20 minutes after we heard it, we found a TV to turn on in the building. And we turned on the TV, started watching the news, and the second plane hit. And everybody, you know, I'm in a classroom with the teacher and 20 kids just watching in awe and shocked. Still feel shocked today when I see it on TV.
Yeah.
You know, that's our generation that lived it.
Yeah. Okay, so my 9/11 story is that I was walking into 2nd period English class. I stared at the TV because the TV was on, and a plane had hit the first Trade Center tower. And I started to wonder, I was arguing with my buddy Nate Bauer, and I was saying, well, maybe it was by accident. You know, back in the day, a plane had flown into the Empire State Building, and the building was perfectly fine. And as he was like, no, it's a terrorist attack, it's a terrorist attack. As he and I are arguing, the plane hit the 2nd tower, and then we were like, okay, this is definitely not something that needs to be argued about. So we go through the whole day, and that whole week in class, everything was silent. We didn't do anything in class. I actually had an official visit to Kent State that week, and there was protests all over the place at Kent State, and I just couldn't relate. I had no idea what was going on, you know, politically. But I remember on the day, my mom came up because my Uncle Craig worked at the Pentagon, and my mom had come up to the football field that day. We were allowed to practice if we wanted to. She stood on the sideline and then left, and she had never told me if Uncle Craig was okay. And fortunately we got home, and I was sort of frustrated with my mom, like, why didn't you tell me what's going on? And she said, he's fine, Uncle Craig's fine, his car's messed up, his car's got, you know, damage from the attack, but he was okay, and his story is absolutely incredible. So Mom, I want you to tell your story and then go into a little bit. Well, just tell us your story.
I was actually on a planning period in school, and I happened to hear something about it, and I went into the library. And of course they had the TV on in there, so I got to see that, the first attack, and then when the second plane hit.
So what sticks with you more? Like I was telling everybody about your experience with JFK. When JFK was shot? What?
Actually, I remember more about JFK, I guess because I was only in 3rd grade out at recess, and everybody was running around yelling that he got shot. So I remember a little more about that, but there's a lot less to remember about it than about 9/11.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, I remember the first person who told me was a bus driver in State College. I was riding back from a physics lab on the bus to my apartment, We called this guy Stone Cold because he had a big bald head and he was like really jacked white guy with a goatee, so he looked exactly like Stone Cold Steve Austin. And he was like, "You hear they flew some planes into the towers?" And I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, I was thinking, my first thought was like little propeller planes like ran into the Twin Towers by accident or something. And he had the radio on and we were listening to it. And then, so I got off the bus, I walked back to my apartment, and that had been like a half hour, well, maybe a 20-minute walk. And then I got into the apartment with my roommate, who watched shit tons of TV, had the TV on, and he was just like losing it. He was like, "Holy shit, man, you got to see this." And yeah, the thing that freaked me out the most that day was the first time when I saw the people coming out of the windows, because it was so hot. They were jumping out of windows to try and not get burned alive, but I remember the cameras focusing in on people just literally jumping out of the Twin Towers to their deaths. And I just remember feeling like freaking like rage, like wanting to fight somebody, or just being angry about it. And then the next day when I went to class, I had an engineering mechanics class. I was an aerospace major at the time, and we had a teacher, Vasundhara Varadhan. We called her Triple V because her middle name was a V also, and she tried to explain to us how, like, the mechanics of how the jet fuel melted the supports, and I think she thought that was going to make us like feel better, but it didn't.